development portfolio and is now back in Cabinet also as a Minister for Local Government. Nanaia Mahuta has been in Cabinet before and is also the first woman to be in Parliament with a tāmoko, a moko kaiwai. She's also juggled her successful political career with her tamariki, and a husband too, I might add. Nanaia Mahuta's here and she joins Chris and we just said it was the Maniapoto trifecta. We're all from the same iwi. Tēnā koe te tuakana.
Oh, morena. It's great to be here this morning.
So far, Waitangi, your experience of Waitangi, the ceremony, it's pretty successful, lots of smiling faces.
Yeah, look, I've been to a number of Waitangi Day celebrations, and I have to say that from the pōwhiri right up until the service this morning, there's an air of optimism and hope, good humour, and I think people are generally looking forward to what's ahead of us as a nation. So I know the politicians who always feel a little bit pensive about Waitangi, about how things are going to go. We're wondering how, what it would be like. I said, well, it could either be really good or not, but let's just go with the day. I think having the pōwhiri on the top marae was just fantastic as well.
Do you think that when you hear humour on the marae, you think you've probably hit the nail on the head? Well,
I think humour and ngāpuhi, they're synonymous for having good humour and also being challenging and provoking. There was a fair element of that, but, it is a sign of success. Overall, the air of optimism around the place is really positive, and the diversity that's here. And like Anzac Day, more and more people are coming to Waitangi Day to celebrate what it represents for all of us.
You've got lots of roles, don't get me wrong, but an incredibly important role you've had as a Māori wahine to navigate kawa on behalf of your Prime Minister, Jacinda. Were you anxious about her speaking? And I know we've spoken a lot to Penny Henare and to Calvin Davis, but really at the core of it, I've thought a lot of you as a Māori woman who's probably sat alongside Jacinda Ardern in the times when she's thinking about what's ahead of her.
Look, I really encourage Māori women and women in general in terms of the protocol of marae to observe the kawa and tikanga of the host iwi. My message to Jacinda was fairly simple. You've been invited to speak. They'll ensure that the protocols accorded to her will take account of a place and a time and a way of looking after her so that she's safe. But most importantly, now that she's hapu and carrying baby, there was a high element of trust that we would absolutely get this right for her and her baby. And I think by all accounts it went well.
It's interesting, we've had this discussion before and lots of people have been talking, well, is this the first, she's speaking from the porch, that there's no difference, but we had this conversation, and in Waikato Tainui there is a similar protocol?
Yes, when women are asked to speak, often it's under a maho or a piruru, really what is functionally possible and the status of what the kaupapa is. So there, within both my Waikato and Maniapoto connections, there is an opportunity for women to speak, so it's not unusual. However, it does rely on the kaupapa and the proceedings of the day for that to happen. But
and have you had Crown representatives speak in that situation?
Ministers? Well, I think about Tūranga Waiwai when the Prime Minister of the time, Helen Clark, visited. She was always accorded an opportunity to speak of, and which she did under the maho of Mihingarangi. However, we had
the Queen? The Queen?
Te Ata.
The
Queen of...
Yes.
In
when
her
she
time,
visited?
well, look, I can't recall that, yeah, so I don't think I can remember when she visited. I might have been too young.
Chris might have been old enough.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe.
There's been lots of promises made here at Waitangi, and it's probably now time that the mahi happens. What's one of your first priorities in your portfolio?
Well, definitely to reorient Māori development and focus on people and the well-being of our whānau, and finding ways that we can better integrate a whānau-focused strategy for supporting well-being, but also enterprise, ensuring that whānau are better able to optimise on opportunities that will free up around improving the utilisation of land, building their capability and things like that. Youth is another issue that I think we should, as Māori, given our demographics and we've got a high number of young people, start to be very deliberate about how we grow youth leadership and participation in our governance structures, and also the design of our new enterprises coming through. Regional development, that's a big kaupapa for Shane Jones to deliver on, but Māori development can plug into that opportunity quite significantly, and it goes without saying culture, language, identity and mātauranga, another key priority for me. I want to make sure that's sitting at the core of this government's vision for the future, the way in which we portray ourselves as being enriched by Māori culture, heritage and our language, that is embedded, I think, in the way that we seek to take all our initiatives forward.
Yeah. A lot of what the Prime Minister has talked about since you've been up here in the north falls under that umbrella of Māori development. Are you feeling much pressure and responsibility for saying, well, hey, a lot of this is on my patch, I've got a lot of work to do?
Well, one of the things that she also said is we can't do it alone, and that applies to all ministers. If we think that we have a sole responsibility and that we alone need to deliver on the challenge, then that's probably the wrong perspective to start from. So we are having quite discussing issues in a cross-cutting way across portfolios. So for regional development, Minister Jones, myself, Minister Twyford, Minister Parker, Minister Robertson, Minister Davis, of course, we're all thinking about the cross-cutting things that we can do together to leverage into supporting regional development aspirations, getting more jobs, getting our young people engaged and making things happen. So it's going to be the sum of what we do together that'll be the hallmark of our government under Jacinda Ardern's leadership, rather than what we do alone.
Cabinet Ministers' offices and the work streams of their departments underneath have often been very siloed, and while there has been some talk about, we've got to work together, in reality that's not always happened. How do you break those walls down and make sure, okay, you in this department, that office, this one over here and that one round the corner, actually collaborate and paddle in unison?
Well, I mean, if I take the approach that we have certainly gone into this term of a sixth Labour government, which is ministers first and foremost must have the kind of relationship that are creating synergies. So we bring our officials and then we start to take responsibility for shared work streams. That is a start, but the proof of the pudding is in the outcome. So, for example, the obligation that we have around building houses, getting people into better home housing options, is not just about the house, it's about the support you put around some of our whānau, whether it's financial literacy or reducing vulnerabilities, and supporting whānau in that respect. There are a few other conversations that take place. So we're committed as ministers to leading through our respective priority areas in our portfolios to drive a more of a collaborative, shared outcome kind of vision for what we're wanting to achieve.
You have some responsibilities in Māori broadcasting as well. And in terms of when you look across how Māori broadcasting is doing with Māori television, the iwi radio networks, you've got, wonderful Māori content on mainstream, probably not on at great times, but across the board. How do you think we are doing?
Well, we've got a couple of challenges on mainstream. We shouldn't be arguing anymore about prime time and putting programs, for example, that are rich in demonstrating who we are as New Zealand, albeit the narrative that's coming through from our Māori communities, which is real, New Zealand. We shouldn't be arguing about that type of stuff in terms of vying for prime time slots. And also funding that could go into more New Zealand-driven content. So I think that's one part of the challenge. In terms of Māori media or broadcasting and where that's going, I do think we're well overdue for a strategy that thinks about how radio and TV fit together, and maybe thinking more strategically about radio as a training ground for for the industry and feeding into TV, but also TV being kind of Māori TV, definitely being a little bit more dynamic and innovative. Look, if Te Huku radio station can, through these cell phones,
make TV.
Make TV, then radio, we need our Māori radio stations kind of more in a uniform way getting into that space, and we need Māori TV being a bit more dynamic about the content that they're deriving from where innovation is happening. And our young people are doing some great things in this area.
So there will be changes in that area.
I'd like to see that. I'm certainly asking for Te Māngai Pāho Māori TV and Te Taurawhiri for that matter to have a shared strategy about real revitalisation, but also the next phase of what Māori broadcasting looks like, and we need to be a bit more courageous. We don't have to be as stifled as mainstream. We can be a little bit more courageous about what we do in this space.
We've got a panel, Te Reo Māori panel on broadcasting coming up in the program with Julian Wilcox and Dale Husband and Stacey Morrison, and it's good listen. But on that subject, what are your views about what you're hearing on mainstream, and what is the role of mainstream broadcasters with our language, Te Reo?
Well, I mean, again, I think in the mainstream space, a lot of the content about who we are as New Zealand, when you look at the programs that are being developed in the Māori space, they're really showing the richness and the diversity of what our identity looks and feels like today, and I think we should invest more in the stories that we're generating from, throughout our communities. This is not my area of expertise. What I'd like to see actually is Māori broadcasters really driving a strategy that can help our response as a government better support the future of Māori broadcasting, what that looks like, and how that demonstrates that we continue to evolve as Māori people in our country in ways that is not kind of overshadowed or weighed down in any type of way. In fact, we're very dynamic in the way that we're evolving as a people.
Just finally, on treaty settlements, because while you're not the treaty negotiations minister, you have a role in that area as well. And given you're the daughter of the late Sir Robert Mahuta, who tidied away and worked diligently on the Waikato Tainui settlement and many others, how motivated are you to see some results for Ngāpuhi and those last iwi?
Well, look, my mother is Ngāpuhi, and while I lean towards my Waikato maniapoto whakapapa connections, I have a high hope and aspiration that there is leadership within Ngāpuhi that can get them towards the right conversation, which is how do we want to see this iwi grow and flourish in the future, and what do we need to do now to make that happen. A lot of the conversation has been focused on representation, but the representation to negotiate a claim and the representation required to enable your development aspirations to happen are two different questions, and I much rather think we need to break through that conversation and get some cut through to get some momentum going forward.
Ka pai e te tuakana tēnā rau atu koe ko taumai